Hi everybody, Justin Sherring here again with next episode in our vlog about mindset. I'm the Surrey Tennis Performance Manager, so I hope you're all doing well, hanging in there. The sun's staying out, so we're doing our best, aren't we? So today what we're looking at is the triangle of trust, which is the player, the parent and the coach all working together to try and help us in using our analogy that we had before, this idea that choking, we were going to use the word choke to help us get stronger. That's the great way of using something that could potentially hurt us to our advantage. So looking very quickly at the word communication, which I mentioned last time, in terms of the player, now players, be brave, be honest, be open. If you're feeling tight, if you're feeling nervous, you need to communicate this. So your responsibility in the triangle of trust in helping yourself is to communicate. Tell us how you feel. And even the little things, it'll all be things that we've heard of before as parents and coaches. So do talk to your team members. Coach, please listen to your player. Of course you will. You know, it doesn't always get mentioned on the coaching courses, but listen to your player, invite them to talk to you, communicate with you, and give them and help them. You know, do some studying. If you don't know the answers, talk to fellow coaches in the network that do know some answers, that have experienced it before. Read some great books. There's some great books out there, a little bit on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But basically what we're looking at is we're trying to teach the players some new habits, some new routines, some new processes that are designed to stimulate the nervous system into feeling that the player is in control. So we're talking about self-talk, using simple, positive keys and triggers that the player can talk to themselves like, come on, let's go, let's find a solution, I'm up for this challenge, let's go. And you just keep it going the whole time. I want the player to imagine that the coach is sitting right next to them, or maybe on their left shoulder the whole time. And it would be a bad environment if the coach was saying, oh, what are you doing wrong? Oh, you're no good. Oh, you're just not working. But alternatively, if that little coaching angel on the left shoulder could be saying, keep going, try again, more of the same, come on, let's keep at this, then that's all we need the coach to communicate to the player, giving them these little processes. Now the parent probably has the trickiest job here, because the parent is so used to seeing their child in an activity and we want them to do well, whether it's standing at the side of a football pitch and cheering them on, you want them to do well, and sometimes that pressure can come across to the player, and sometimes they can really feel that sort of intensity, and it can come across as a little bit negative as a player, especially when you're in your peak state and your central nervous system, I keep talking about that, is like open and aware and really vulnerable. So as a parent, you need to be very supportive and very understanding. And if you don't get it, then study some books, or just remember how nervous you felt going into an interview, or when you've got to go talk to your boss and it's a big decision on the line. It's a bit like that. Hackers beware. That was RH, wasn't it? In choke. Now, hackers beware. That refers to players. Don't forget the game challenge. Yes, you've got the opponent down the other end, but the game challenge is the game challenge. That's you trying to win. If you win the match at grade 4 level, you're not going to be a champion yet. You're not going to be a superstar yet. You're not going to achieve your goals. You got to focus on your self-challenge. This is about you getting yourself better, you getting yourself stronger, so that when you do you do face the challenges of later in life, 16, 17, 18 years old, playing big tournaments, you want to be strong mentally, emotionally, and deep down strong. So you've got to build this core of strength up, and that's about self-challenge and not about game challenge, not about, I've got to win. So that really comes up a lot here when we're talking about hackers beware, because all I'm talking about is just making sure that the other end of the court doesn't reflect how good you are. So if the other end of the court is your parent or your coach might think, oh, you're just playing someone that you should beat easily here. I want the player to really be strong and say, well, hold on a second, it's not them down there I've got to worry about. I'm my biggest opponent. as the player, you are always your own biggest opponent, because it's you. If you get your head sorted out, then you can start performing. So like I said, the coach needs to make sure that we're always talking about things that are in the player's control. Ask your player, when that last match, how was your body language out of 10? How was your self-talk? What sort of things did you find yourself saying to yourself? And then as a parent, because in British tennis it's the parent a lot of the time as they're watching their players play. Again, you've got to be really careful that you don't downplay any opponents, and if your player is lucky enough to be seeded or good enough to be seeded, make sure that you always respect the opponent down the other end, and don't make too much of who they're playing. It's always about the player playing themselves. It's an individual sport. There's a lot going on between the years, so make sure that we use that sort of language. The O in choke, remember, was one team. So now I'm going to try and introduce to you all get together, talk. In all the relationships that I've had with players and parents in this triangle of trust, it's the idea that we are one team, so we talk frequently. The best moments that I had was with a player, and we sat with the parent, and we sat with actually was the life coach, sports psychologist, myself and the player, and we'd meet for 15 minutes every week and just say thank you to each other for all the hard work that we're putting in, and just recap and analyse how things are going. And the bottom line is, if the coach is feeling a little bit undermined or not feeling great, then the player will feel that. If the parent feels a bit used and abused and like a taxi service, then they're not going to feel great either. So the player often needs to say thank you to their team for helping them. And we, as coaches and parents, need to acknowledge the hard work that the players are putting in, because it's a tough journey emotionally. The K was kick the habit, remember? So in our triangle of trust, the player is trying to kick the habit. So we've got to understand that habits are formed over a minimum of 3 months. That's if you stick to things properly. Change doesn't happen overnight. So players, I need you to be strong here. Need you to stick to your routines. They're called routines for a reason. Doing it, one on, one off is not a routine. You've got to try and do this all the time. So, and that goes for the coach. The coach needs to set up this self-awareness state in a lesson. How are we feeling out of 5? How are we feeling out of 10? How confident are you out of 10? Give me ways that you can behave more confidently. Give me ways that sound like you're behaving confidently. These are things that the coach can say to the player that keeps the habit going. It's habitual. We need it to be a process that is just ongoing. And again, I think the most difficult person here, the most influential person, is the parent, because the parent spends the most time with the player. Coaches can spend up to maybe 5 hours a week with the player, but the rest of the time they're with the parents. So parents have the toughest job here. So parents, listen to the language that your players are using. Are they saying, oh, it's really interesting what the coach was saying the other day. Yeah, he thinks that the way I talk is really important. And if the parent can then communicate that to the coach, then we know we're starting to change habits. So kicking the habit, really important for the triangle of trust to all be on the same page. And the E, the final one in our E, is always going to be energy. Again, you can start to feel the sort of enthusiasm and energy that I can feel in myself when I start talking about these things, because change is going to happen. Good things are ahead. As long as we keep our energy. If the triangle of trust, that we've got here, if one starts dropping, then we don't have a triangle anymore. If the top one crashes off, we don't have a triangle. If the coach, falls apart, we haven't got it anymore. So we've got to keep communicating. We've got to keep that energy and enthusiasm up. And sometimes the parent will have to say to the coach, come on coach, thank you, you're doing a great job. Keep going, I really appreciate your energy. And sometimes the coach will have to say to the parent, I think you're doing a fantastic job and you're really helping your son or daughter, because parents need to hear that. And then we both probably need to go and talk to the player and say, well done, we really appreciate your effort, we really appreciate your commitment, and we think you're being so brave and so strong, and it's going to give great reward, because in the end, not every tennis player is going to be a tennis player professionally. So we want these skills to be transferable. We want to take them into university, into their jobs, and then transfer these skills onto their kids as well. So great if they become players, but obviously they're going to go on and be great human beings in the rest of their life. So that's where we are. Choke, we're using choke now. See, I'm not even scared of choke anymore. We're just using it to help us get better. So we'll see you next time. Bye.